Hi, welcome to Hit the Bricks, and welcome to a somewhat overdue overview of the Lego City. Some of you have been asking what's been going on with the table. If you watched some of the other videos, put a link up on top, but talking about creating a Lego City from scratch with this kind of combination of model railroading and Lego City with the pink foam and some of that. So some changes have been happening, still been working on it, but I'm switching things up again. And I say again because if you've been with the channel since the beginning or close to the beginning, which is about 4 months now the channel's been on, I went through some different changes. Started with a couple fold-out type tables, and then went to a couple of these nice IKEA tables, which most people seem to do for the Lego cities. Expanded to 3, and really talked about how I wanted to make a Lego city that was really dense as far as being really full of life with the minifigures and a lot of details, and really pack as much in as I could on a few of these tables and then expand on if and when I wanted to. As I progressed with this channel and as I progressed with building with Lego, that started to morph into something different. Let me give you a little bit of background too. Before I did this channel, so only about 4 months ago, I was still what in the Lego community seems to be called the Dark Ages for the most part. I wasn't building anything on a daily or weekly, even monthly, maybe even not even bi-monthly sort of thing. I was, whenever maybe I'd get a gift or something really that I saw at the store really popped out and I wanted to do it, but there wasn't really any consistency with it. And I really hadn't had a Lego city of any sort since I was a child. I'm talking young, and that was maybe on a 3x6 piece of plywood that my dad put down, and that was it. So this is all new to me, so this process has been interesting, it's been fun, and it's been revealing as far as what I really want out of a Lego city and what I can handle and what I can't handle, just to be honest. And what I found is when I pushed past those 3 initial IKEA tables that I actually had in the other room, went into this room with the thought process of adding the pink foam and adding a model railroading and Lego City type vibe to it, which is what I wanted to do because I like both of those things. And that's what I wanted to do, and that's why I brought it into this room. And fundamentally, it was a good idea, but I made a big mistake. And I promised, if you ever read the description for the channel on all the videos, I promised there'd be some mistakes. Okay, I've made some, I've dropped some things, but this one proved to be something that required me to change up the table, change up the layout, and that's because I made it too deep. I couldn't reach over in the corners to really build and construct the things that I wanted to construct in the corners, which would have been either a backdrop for a city or some mountains. Now there's ways that I could have worked around that, and that's kind of what I had in my head. I'm not stupid. I realized when I was building it that it was too deep, but I thought I could be standing on like some kind of step stool or a little step ladder or something like that and reach over, it would be fine. Just deal with it when the time comes. Well, when the time came, I didn't want to deal with it. It was just like, I already had some things going on that was making the process not as enjoyable as it could have been. And we're talking about that in just a moment. But that was the initial catalyst of changing the city, was the fact that I physically made it too wide. So something to be thoughtful of when you're making your city is that you really don't want it to have too much of a reach. Even if you feel like you can do it, if it's not comfortable, if you think it's too much, it probably is. And it probably is not going to be as enjoyable or conducive to work on those parts back that may be against a wall or what have you as far as building, because it's more difficult than what you probably think. So that was the beginning of it. Like I said, that was the catalyst. I kind of got it going. But the other things that really played into wanting to change this up is the fact that, like I just said before, I wanted to do this smaller table and really get it looking the way I wanted to before moving on. And that's something that I went away from. And part of that is because I was doing the model railroading type theme as far as getting all the track down, having the base, and kind of having the train be able to run and then build up from there. That's what I remember doing as a child with my father, is that you build the bench work. You build the table, you build things up, you start building up where the track would go, and you make sure the trains run. Because that was the most important thing, you make sure the trains run. And maybe some of you have done it a different way, whether it be Lego or whether it be model trains. You can leave a comment down below. I'd be interested to see what people did, but that's how we did it. And that's what I was doing here. So you can see in the picture up on top here that I had the whole table laid out with the pink foam as far as the first and maybe second layer that was on there, and with the train, and it actually ran, which was great in theory. What it did is that, to be honest with you, it overwhelmed me as far as like the scope of the project for what I wanted to put into it, what I was willing to allocate for time and space. I don't have a big place here, and I moved it from one room to this room and then allocated the entire room just for the layout. So no building space and no storage space that had to go somewhere else. It seemed great at first because you're building your dream that you wanted as a child. You finally get to build this big layout. I've got train action, I got the Lego city, it's gonna be great. It was overwhelming for what I have going on in my life right now. It just didn't make sense, and it was taking up a lot of space, and that I really was not comfortable with when I actually got it in here. So being too wide was a necessity that would have had to change. But then when I had to change it anyways, I decided, you know what, I want to scale back, go back to about 4 months ago, the basics of what I wanted to do with this Lego city. And what I wanted to portray in the channel is really doing a great job on a small amount of space and then expanding. So that leads to where we are today. So that's what I have going on. As you can see, the southern dock area here, again, if you watch the other videos, this is the same. I haven't changed this because this is narrow and it kind of fits really well into the city how it is. And I want to keep the same, let me talk about this. I want to keep the same idea that I had with the previous city as far as that theme, what's going on. The seafood coming in, going on to these new refrigeration cars here. If you didn't see that video, here's a link to that. Those are really cool. They were custom made for Hit the Bricks and for this city. I'm gonna put a MOCS ice house there. So the seafood's gonna come in, we're gonna pack with ice, and then we're gonna ship them out. And they're still gonna be shipped out like they were before, going to what I was calling the Northern Rail docks. And they're just gonna come around here and they're gonna end up right here. So they're not gonna go as far, but we're getting the same sense of logistics as far as having to move that from one area to the next, and then they'll go off in trucks and get distributed to the city. And I also kept a few other key things. I wanted to keep the key elements that I liked in the other layout. It's just smaller. It's really not too much different of a design other than not coming out like this, like the other one did. This was that piece that actually jutted out before. Speaking of that, this is where the lighthouse is gonna go. It's still gonna go there. I still like that lighthouse. I still wanted to have that rocky point for that. On this other side here, I'm gonna do some water here along with some elevation and a bridge over here. And if you can see it, a bridge over here. So this is gonna be water. I still wanna make a kind of like a rocky island, and that'd be the other lighthouse that I wanted to do. So I wanted to have the manned lighthouse here and an automated lighthouse here that would direct the ships into the bay type area. So still doing that. Like I said, still have the northern rail yard, still have the southern docks. The essence is still the same. I still want to put a passenger train station. I still want to have a small beach. I think it's going to look close to the same, just condensed a little bit. Now this area here, this round area, I'm gonna cut this straight across here so it's the same width as the IKEA table, and then build a backdrop. I plan to use a lot of facades, which I was planning on doing on this side anyways, but I want to do it on this side for like the city backdrop. I also left these kind of out here. I'll have at least one of these tracks, maybe these two, but that can go on for future expansion. So when this is done and done to my satisfaction, that I feel like I've done everything I can, then I will expand to it. That's the way my mind works, and that's what I'm comfortable with doing. So that's what I'm gonna do. Now I did cut this out here and cut some of these. If you notice how rough this is, I don't know if you can see that compared to this. That's because I cut this with a knife and then just broke it off, which you might have seen me do in some of the other videos. And then this part was cut with that saw, with that like a jigsaw type Dremel tool that I had. This obviously looks much better when it's sanded. This, even if I sand it, it's not gonna look that good. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cut this with the saw. I'm gonna cut all this area here. This is gonna be cut in a little bit. Not sure if you can see that, but just kind of give it a nice, because I do like this more rounded and different type shape on the sides. So I'm gonna do that with a saw. So I'm gonna do that now. I'm gonna cut that, I'm gonna sand this out. I'm gonna cut this, like I said, right here by the Santa Fe, right behind it. And that's gonna be a backdrop. I won't do the backdrop in this video, but I will do the rest of it so we can see what this is really gonna look like. So we're gonna do that today. We'll have a good idea of what it's gonna do, the overall shape's gonna look like. And then kind of go from there in the next video. We'll paint some water and get a better idea. It's not so overwhelming to me. I wanna be able to do this and enjoy it and not have it be a sense of anxiety or maybe obligation. I want it to be more fun, like Lego should be. So that's where we're at. So I'm gonna do a little work here. I'll show that in a time lapse, and then I'll wrap it up at the end, and then we'll go from there. Okay, so here we go. This is what it looks like after I got done sawing everything. You can see this area here. It's much smoother than it was when I cut it out. Obviously I did sand it as well, but we don't have some of those cuts that were in there that didn't look very attractive at all. But it gives a good idea of what the shapes is like. Here I did cut this in a little bit here. This had like a kind of a sharp angle going into it. It didn't look very realistic in my opinion. So that's what we got. Next video, I'm gonna go ahead and paint all this so you can kind of see what it's gonna look like. Maybe work on this elevation a little bit. But I'm gonna leave it at that for this video today. So thank you everybody for watching. If you haven't subscribed, go ahead and do so. I'll be working on this, continuing with the video series. If you like the video, thumbs up, and we will see you next time.